Fouling is not a problem for a good defensive team. And Duran is fouled, and oh my goodness. And Musa's upset. Musa's really upset. I have never seen Musa. Goodness, now Miles and Duran and Beef Stew. This is out of control. Oh, wow.
All right, let's talk about what went down last night between the Detroit Pistons and the Charlotte Hornets. Because if you're still framing this as just a fight, I think you're missing the bigger picture. This wasn't some random loss of control or a young team being reckless at all. This was the latest signal flare that the Pistons are done being a punchline in the NBA. They're done being pushed around. And they're done accepting that teams can come into games against them and expect an easy night. This Pistons team is competitive. They're emotional, and they're unapologetic about it. And honestly, that's exactly what you want to see at this stage of the rebuild. And let's be real for a second. For years, Detroit basketball has been synonymous with patience, development. You'd hear things like they're learning, they're growing, give it time. You hear the same thing out of the Lions, frankly. And while that was all necessary for the Pistons, it also came with a reputation around the league. Teams didn't fear them. They didn't circle them on the schedule as a tough out. They expected to dictate the tone. And what happened last night was Detroit saying very clearly that those days are now over with. You want to test them emotionally, physically, get in their face? Cool. Just understand there's going to be a response to it. It's going to be all business from here on out for the Detroit Pistons. Now, the moment itself escalated fast. And nobody's pretending that fights are okay. I'm certainly not advocating for that. And the league will do what the league does, which is fines. Maybe somebody will be suspended, stern looks from the office, whoop-de-woo. And that's all part of the NBA ecosystem. But the root cause matters more than the optics. This wasn't cheap shot basketball. It wasn't dirty play. I mean, I saw it. You saw it at the beginning of this. I mean, this was competitive friction boiling over. And if you watch this Pistons team all season, you know it's been building. They play with an edge now. They guard harder. They talk more. They challenge guys. They aren't backpedaling when things are getting a little chippy. I mean, it wasn't an accident. You saw it. I saw it. I mean, that's culture forming in real time. And that's the thing people outside of Detroit don't understand yet. This team doesn't care about being liked. Detroiters have never really cared about being well-liked. We could care less. What we care about is being respected. This team cares about being respected. For a young roster, that's a massive shift. Usually young teams try to survive. They try not to make mistakes. They try to keep games close and hope experience carries them late. But this Pistons squad is different. I mean, you hear Stephen A. Smith carrying on ESPN about it. These Detroit Pistons want to punch first, metaphorically speaking, obviously. They want to impose themselves defensively. They want other teams to feel them over 48 minutes. And when that intensity gets matched by another team that's also fighting for respect, like the Hornets were last night, sparks are going to fly a little bit. Charlotte didn't do anything unusual in the NBA sense, honestly. I mean, they played physical, they jawed a bit. That happens every night in this league. It's part of the game. The difference is that Detroit didn't just absorb it and move on. They met it head on. And that's a reflection of how competitive this roster has become because these guys believe that they belong. They believe they're not just developing players, but establishing identities. And that's important because when you believe that, you're not going to tolerate just being punked. Whether that's a hard foul, some trash talk, or a moment where another team tries to assert their dominance. That obviously wasn't flying for the Pistons last night. And what I loved about the moment, if you can even use that word, is that it didn't feel fake, didn't feel staged. This wasn't WWE drama or highlights. This was raw. This was emotion. This was guys who cared deeply about winning. It was about pride, about what that Pistons jersey represents. And Detroit has a long basketball history of toughness. I mean, it's who they've been. You don't get to wear those colors and expect fans to accept softness. We're not going for that. That standard has been missing for a while, and now you can start to see it creeping back in. Not because someone told them to do it, but because the players themselves are wired that way now. And here's where the narrative really flips for me, at least. In past seasons, if something like this happened, the reaction would have been, oh no, no, the Pistons are losing it. They're losing their composure. They're not focused. Or this team needs to learn how to control themselves. This time, the reaction feels very different. This feels like a team discovering where the line is and learning how to channel that fire instead of extinguishing it. Competitive teams walk that line all the time. The best ones learn how to weaponize emotion without letting it sabotage them. And that's what we saw. And you also have to consider how the rest of the league is also watching this, because they saw it too. Teams scout tendencies, not just schemes. If Detroit starts to gain a reputation as a team that plays hard every possession and doesn't tolerate disrespect, that's going to change how other opponents approach them. Maybe that cheap shove doesn't happen next time. Maybe that extra trash talk gets swallowed up a little bit. I mean, they know that Detroit ain't going for all that. Or maybe teams lean into it and Detroit learns to be even sharper. Maybe it's time to really bring the bad boys back. But either way, the Pistons are no longer invisible. They're being felt. And this fight also says something important about leadership on the floor too, because young teams don't stand up for themselves unless someone else sets that tone. And so whether it's through defense, hustle, confrontation, whatever, somebody has decided that this group ain't rolling over. That matters more than any single win or loss. You can't fake toughness over an 82-game season. You just can't. I mean, you either got it or you don't. And this Pistons team is clearly discovering that part of its identity. Now, does that mean everything was perfect? Of course not. You never want things to get to a point where you're risking ejections or suspensions. I mean, you want controlled aggression, not chaos, but that's a growth process. And last night, it was what it was. You'd much rather have to dial guys back than to try to light a fire under a group that doesn't care. The Pistons are on the right side of that equation right now. I don't care how it plays out. They care a lot, sometimes maybe too much, and that's a good problem to have. And so as far as I'm concerned, what happened last night against the Hornets fits into a larger scheme of the season. The Pistons are competing. They're competing consistently, not perfectly, but every night and consistently, and games aren't freebies anymore. Other teams have to work. And when games get tight, when emotions run high, Detroit doesn't shrink from that. They lean in. That's how you build credibility in this league. That's how young players turn into core players. That's how a rebuild starts feeling real instead of theoretical. So when people see that Pistons-Hornets fight and want to start talking about professionalism, I see something else. I see a young group drawing a line. I see players who are sick of being treated like a developmental scrimmage. I see competitiveness bubbling over because expectations have obviously changed in Motown. This team isn't asking for respect anymore. They're taking it. And moving forward, this is something the Pistons are going to have to manage, not eliminate, because the edge is part of who they are now. The trick is learning when to use it and when to pull it back. And if they can do that, if they can keep that fire without letting it burn them, then moments like last night won't be remembered as mistakes. They'll be remembered as growing pains on the way to something bigger. The bottom line is that the Pistons didn't start a fight. They ended up in one because they're competitive, they're confident, and they ain't taking no crap off anybody in this league. And if you're a Detroit fan, that should excite you way more than it worries you. Keep it locked. You're listening to Midnight Sports Detroit.